Let's talk about trigger context variable. Context variables are used to access the records that cause the trigger to fire. For example, trigger.new contains all the records that were inserted in insert or update triggers. Similarly, trigger.old provides the old versions of S-objects before they were updated. Some other context variable returns a boolean value to indicate whether the trigger was fired due to an update or some other event. These variables are useful when a trigger combines multiple events like before insert, before update or after update. Let's talk about them in brief. Is executing returns true if the current context of the Apex code is a trigger. It returns false when it gets called from Visual Force page or web service. Is insert returns true if the trigger was fired due to an insert operation. Is update returns true if the trigger was fired due to an update operation. Similarly, is delete returns true if the trigger was fired due to a delete operation. Is before returns true if the trigger was fired before any record was saved, and is after returns true if the trigger was fired after all the records were saved. Is undelete returns true if this trigger was fired after a record is recovered from the recycle bin. New context variable returns a list of new versions of the S-object records, and new map returns a map of IDs of the new version of the S-object records. Similarly, old returns a list of old versions of the S-object records, and old map returns a map of IDs of the old versions of the S-object records. Operation type returns an enum of type system.trigger operation corresponding to the current operation, and size returns the total number of records in a trigger invocation, both old and new.